Thanks for staying with us. There was a double murder in Spring Mount, St. James last night. 24-year-old Fadil Ferguson, also called Street Man, who lived in Spring Mount, and 23-year-old O'Dane Graham, who was a mason from Dam Road, Johns Hall, another St. James community, died from gunshot wounds they sustained when men traveling in a motor car reportedly drove up and opened fire on persons who were at a cook shop in the Spring Mount area. Information is this shooting incident took place at about 8:15, and Ferguson, Graham and another injured man were taken to hospital where Ferguson and Graham were pronounced dead. The other man was admitted for treatment. Detectives assigned to the St. James Criminal Investigation Branch are collecting information on this latest fatal gun attack. A man is now dead following a motorcycle crash along the Wilderness Main Road in St. Mary on Friday afternoon. Reports from the Corporate Communications Unit of the Jamaica Constabulary Force indicate that 19-year-old Sajay Green of Bonnie Gate in the parish was driving his motorcycle when he lost control and collided with a Toyota Probox. Green and the driver of the motor car were taken to the hospital where Green was pronounced dead. The driver was treated and released. Now, Minister of Health Dr. Christopher Tufton says over 70,000 prescriptions have been filled to date under the Public Sector Pharmacy Partnership Program across 17 pharmacies. Speaking at the launch of the St. James leg of the Hilton's Pharmacy in Montego Bay on Friday, Minister Tufton said the program continues to significantly reduce waiting time for patients. CVM Live's Vaughn Thorpe reports.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the response has been nothing but positive. Delivering the keynote address at the official opening of the upgraded Drug Serve Pharmacy, Tufton said the initiative has been significantly working in St. James.
Within those 17 pharmacies, we have written over that one-year period about 70 odd, almost 80,000 prescriptions. In St. James here, under this public-private arrangement, we have written some 33,500 prescriptions approximately. In this pharmacy, Hilton Pharmacy, approximately half of those prescriptions were written.
Noting the crisis at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, Dr. Tufton believes the public-private partnership is reasonably significant.
Cornwall Regional Hospital is still open for business and still doing a lot, providing critical services to the citizens of this parish and adjoining parishes. But this PPP arrangement in these 5 pharmacies would have enhanced the opportunity for citizens to access pharmacy services.
Dr. Tufton added that there are plans to roll out the program to other sections of the island.
We're looking at between June, July, by the end of the 3rd quarter of this year, we're looking at about another 35 or so pharmacies across the country in different parishes.
The initiative, administered by the National Health Fund, involves partnership with private pharmacies for the dispensing of drugs to public patients. Vaughn Thorpe, CVM Live.
Lasco Distributors has partnered with Bayer Healthcare to offer an affordable solution to combat the effects of a chronic and painful disease in women. Khadija Thomas tells us more.
A sharp stabbing pelvic pain that might begin before your period and lasts for several days. The disease develops when cells resembling those of the lining of the womb grow outside its walls, forming implants which may cause inflammation and formation of scar tissue. Now Visan, which is an oral drug manufactured by German-based pharmaceutical giant Bayer Healthcare, will provide a viable option for women who are affected by the disease. Medical advisor and obstetrician gynecologist Dr. Carlos Escalante says Visan is the first product that was developed to treat endometriosis, which may cause infertility in women.
We have to understand that women are treated differently. Endometriosis could affect women from 15 all the way up to menopause, so we will not treat that 15-year-old the same way we'll treat a 45-year-old. So generally, medical treatment is first-line treatment, and means women don't have to go to the operating theater as they used to before. Now we have an option to begin off with therapy, and if they have a good reaction to this therapy, they might not need a surgery until much later in life. So it complements the way we're treating these women, and it might even put surgery off, indefinitely.
Meanwhile, director of the Hugh Winter Fertility Management Unit at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Dr. Vernon Da Costa, says it usually takes 10 years for Jamaican women to be diagnosed with endometriosis.
One is that the patients, when they go to see the doctor, they usually don't complain too much initially of that period pain, But when they do go, sometimes they're misdiagnosed as having pelvic infection, or they're actually told that maybe it's because of the fibroids. But in general, unless fibroids are located in a specific location, they don't cause pain unless they're degenerating.
Dr. Da Costa says medical professionals have already begun a public awareness campaign in primary schools on the disease. The drug is now being distributed by LASCO and available in pharmacies island-wide. Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
In this CVM Live update, billionaire investor Michael Leachin has carried through with a legal action against the Dominican Republic. Mr. Leachin's attorneys have filed a more than $300 million arbitration claim after the landfill he invested in was seized by the DomRep government for alleged environmental misdeeds. Mr. Leachin, who held a long-term concession agreement with the Dominican Republic to manage the landfill in the country's capital, argues in the claim that the country improperly took over and began operating the municipal landfill in the latter half of 2017. The notice also argues discrimination, saying the DomRep state favored its own nationals which are involved in the same business. The investor adds that the authorities have not lived up to commitments made in the settlement agreement signed in 2014. Education Minister Senator Will Reid says Jamaica's growth challenge is primarily focused on the formality of or economic activities involving agriculture. Once again, more from Khadija Thomas.
The Education Minister, Senator Will Reid, says agriculture is a significant part of our economy that has declined over the years. The minister was speaking at Elitson Primary and Infant School recently on its herbal vegetable garden project. He says Jamaica consistently imports food for tourists, although we possess enough land to foster production.
In our production, every time we have major flooding or we have, of course, like we're going through the period of drought, it impacts on our agricultural production. Teachers' salaries, public sector salaries are interestingly related to agriculture, because if agriculture is a significant part of the economy, and if it produces and does well, it means GDP goes up, the government gets more activities and gets more revenue, and of course there's a public sector workers, the wages to GDP.
The minister notes that students must be exposed to our nation's overall development.
Agriculture production now in the 21st century has to also utilize far more science and technology, because we still have to feed ourselves. And by the way, the shocking thing about it is that our world population continues to grow, right? And so at the rate we're going, by the way, they forecast in 50 years' time, we'll be running out of arable land.
He commended the herbal garden project, saying it will support children who are unable to access the basic requirements for proper nutrition.
At least in the rural areas of which I am part of, you can plant. A lot of, in the country here, people have little land area that they can plant. So those children are sometimes better off in terms of even getting breakfast, because they can plant vegetables and all of that, and you can use that, and you can at least have something to eat. In the urban setting, urban poverty is a serious thing, because if you don't get some money to buy something, you have nothing at all.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
There was a scare on the last day of the school week at the St. Mary High School. Fire broke out, causing damage to a section of the institution's new block. Former student and former board chairman Maurice Guy, who visited the school the day before the fire, along with the opposition leader and the Minister of Education on separate courtesy calls, have already pledged $100,000 towards repairs. In the meantime, there is high commendation for the school population on how they reacted to the emergency. Even as Principal Juliet Sadar told CVM Live, plans have already been made to ensure teaching and learning will not be disrupted come Monday. You were pleased with how the children and the staff responded, actually?
Very, very pleased, because once we recognized that the building was burning, we immediately activated our evacuation plan, and so in just a very short time they had assembled at the assembly point. And we were able to check to see that every student was accounted for.
How was it detected? Yes. Who raised the alarm?
Well, actually, because it's two classrooms that were being used at the time, the teachers themselves evacuated the students and they raised the alarm. And after they raised the alarm, then, of course, the emergency plan kicked into gear, and we rang the long bell, which is the procedure when there is an emergency.
Roughly how many students have been displaced?
That would be about 96. And of course, we also lost our audio-visual room, and students used to use that room as well. So that is going to create a little bit of discomfort in finding classroom space for those students and teachers who used to use that room. We already had a space challenge, so this is just going to make it a little bit more difficult. But we will start off with our general devotion on Monday, because we are so happy that our lives have been spared. There was no injury. So Monday we expect to have a pretty normal day, as normal as we can make it.
This is CVM Live. We go to a break ahead of news from overseas. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our regional and international news, and for that we go to our reporter Vaughn Thorpe.
By the U.S. government to impose severe sanctions against Russian aluminum, Rusal, one of the largest aluminum producers in the world, which has a large bauxite operation base in the South American country, employing over 500 persons. It has triggered the worst financial crisis the company has ever faced, with its stocks and bonds tumbling. Now, emotional and humorous tributes have been paid to former First Lady Barbara Bush at her funeral service in Texas. Her son, Jeb Bush, Florida's ex-governor, drew laughs from the crowd in a eulogy at the church where his parents have worshipped since the 1950s.
Thank all that are gathered here to celebrate the life of Barbara Bush. Now, it is appropriate to express gratitude because we learned to do that at a very early age. You see, our mom was our first and most important teacher. Sit up, look people in the eye, please say please and thank you, do your homework, quit whining and stop complaining, eat your broccoli. Yes, Dad, she said that.
Past presidents and historians were among the estimated 1,500 mourners at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Houston. Mrs. Bush, a literacy campaigner, died at her home on Tuesday at the age of 92. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump decided against attending the invite-only service, saying in a statement that his absence was to avoid disruptions due to added security and out of respect for the Bush family. The U.S. president has had a difficult relationship with the Bushes, most significantly in his run against Jeb Bush for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016. However, his wife, First Lady Melania Trump, was in attendance, representing the First family. And North Korea says it has suspended nuclear and long-range missile tests and plans to close its nuclear test site. President Donald Trump is citing big progress. More in this report from ITV.
The announcement came on North Korean state TV. Confirmation the country intends to suspend all nuclear and missile testing and close a key test site. It comes following an escalation in tensions which saw North Korea carry out a series of missile tests last year. But in recent months there have been signs of an improvement in international relations, with leader Kim Jong-un set for a landmark meeting with US President Donald Trump. He welcomed the news of this dramatic shift in policy by tweeting, "North Korea has agreed to suspend all nuclear tests and close up a major test site. This is very good news for North Korea and the world. Big progress. Look forward to our summit."
And that's it for regional and international news. I am Vaughn Thorpe. Good evening.
And now eLive, where we'll take a look at Miss Jamaica World and more.
Welcome to eLive. So the Miss Jamaica World competition is back for another year, and with it, several changes as well. The pageant has a new franchise owner known as Crown of Beauty Jamaica, which is owned by local playwright Aston Cook and veteran entertainment specialist Weston Houghton. The swimwear category has been eliminated from Coronation Night and will only be featured in the Beach Beauty Fast Track event. The Golden Scissor Award will be presented to the local designer with the best gown worn on Coronation Night. And a spotted card campaign has been implemented to encourage the wider public to participate in identifying the best candidates for the Miss Jamaica World title. Franchise owner Weston Houghton explained the aim of this year's competition at its launch on Wednesday, April 18.
Miss Jamaica World seeks to recruit the best Jamaican lady to represent the country at the Miss World pageant. This will be achieved by unearthing, training and unveiling the nation's finest women through a national search and a casting alongside intensive grooming, coaching and preparation that will culminate with the coronation of an ambassador, Miss Jamaica World. This year, the pageant will be staged under the theme, My Jamaican Girl, Purposely Beautiful. This demonstrates our renewed focus on beauty with a purpose. We're therefore aiming at attracting contestants who are contributing positively to their communities and the wider Jamaica.
The eliminations for Miss Jamaica World 2018 will be done on August 11. On August 12, the finalists will be presented. Fast track events will follow, and finally, the grand coronation will be held on September 1.
Now, just a minute before you take it. Stop fiddling with your tie, Onslow.
Sorry, I feel like the first man in our family to be hanged.
Me? I am. It's me. I asked her.
What
she
now?
told me.
They're arguing which one is the father. Which one is the father?
It's a lovely baby. Which one's the father?
Let's go into the church, shall we?
Welcome back to CVM Live Extra, the first 30 minutes of CVM Live, where we expand stories that made the news week. We bring you more now on the crisis at the Cornwall Regional Hospital in St. James, which has been afflicted by noxious fumes. Members of the opposition People's National Party, led by President Dr. Peter Phillips, visited the hospital on Tuesday. However, the team was unexpectedly met by Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, who proceeded to give them a tour. Well, we have more from a press briefing held by the PNP on Tuesday and another by Dr. Tufton on Thursday.
We still do not know the extent of the problem. And I think at minimum, what we need is an independent public inquiry. In this instance, I think that the membership of such a board of inquiry should come from the recommendations of the Medical Association of Jamaica, the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, the Pharmacology Department of UTech and our universities, and the Nurses Association, their membership having been directly affected, and that this inquiry should be charged to inquire into the circumstances surrounding the decision not to evacuate the hospital when the recommendation was made. But they should also be asked to inquire into the causes of the symptoms that have negatively affected the health of the hundreds of Jamaicans who have used the Cornwall Regional Hospital in the interim. And they should also be asked to inquire on the extent of this problem affecting the medical staff, the patients, and the families. And finally, I think we need to understand how adequate the arrangements are for the rehabilitation and
almost 1,800 emergency surgeries over the last year. Now those are 1,800 persons who potentially could have died based on the nature of an emergency surgery. And so when I hear the call about shutting down without alternatives, I really need to redirect that call and the question, what would have happened if that had taken place? And the evidence is very clear that we would have had significant issues, including loss of lives. So that, you know, while I appreciate and I'm very sensitive to the inconveniences of those who have been affected, and it's something that we are taking steps to address. I've listened to the concerns of the nurses and the doctors, and I am very sensitive to those concerns. At the same time, the issue becomes, what do you do when you don't have an alternative for providing a critical service as Cornwall Regional is providing? So, you know, I don't see any need for an inquiry, if you want to call it that, except that we need to get on with the work to repair the hospital, rehabilitate it, and get it functioning as it ought to function, which we need to do, and which has been brought in this position over many years because of a lack of support for the institution. If there's any need for an inquiry, it is an inquiry into why we have failed to maintain the institution over an extended period of time, literally over 2 decades, which has brought us to this point. Yep. And I do intend to commission a study, a case study on Cornwall Regional Hospital. And part of that is to determine on why the lack of maintenance, what has brought us to this point, what are the lessons to be learned, and how we don't get here again. It's not a witch hunt, which I suspect is what is being called for. It's not a politically motivated scoring of points examination. It's an examination about the caring for the maintenance of our public infrastructure and what needs to be done in order to avoid these things from occurring again. And I think from that perspective, my call for an inquiry is a much more qualitative call than what is being done by the opposition.
He has requested, Dr. Campbell that is, on behalf of the party and the country, information as to when we can expect the building to be completely rehabilitated. What is the extent of the work that is being undertaken? What is the cost? Who is doing it? And at what pace? This is something that the country must know. The people of Western Jamaica want to know when they're going to have an adequate hospital available to them to provide the services. All of this information is not available.
All of us have to be on the same page. So the first thing that he needs to do is to share the work plan with us so we can know where exactly he is, what are the plans going forward, so we can make an input in it. I've said before that in order for us to have consensus, there has to be consultation. I'm not just talking about coming on a tour for the photos and the media. I'm talking about genuine sharing of the information so the opposition can be in an informed position to make a worthwhile contribution to how we move forward. That cannot happen until everybody is on the same page. We still have the associations who are in the dark. Some of the associations still have not seen the PAHO report as to exactly what was detected in the building. The other report that was done by the School of Toxicology, that report is still not available to them. And that report identified more inciting agents, those are the agents causing the symptoms, than the PAHO report. That is still not available to some of the associations.
Again, a part of the process winding down the hospital. I said all the work that's been done has been significant work. It takes time, and it's difficult to say I could have done it much faster than that, because winding down the hospital with specialized service is not easy. What we can say today is that the work has been done, and we have found space to relocate all the services we would like to relocate. And in fact, some weeks now, I think some 3 weeks, all the patients are out of the hospital. And by the end of the week, I guess, all the workers will be out of the hospital except for 2 or 3 services. Very few small services in the basement which are not affected. The linear unit, while being part of the building, is a new building and it's on the outside of the building. The work to relocating the boilers and the core of the hospital backroom services was critical. The design of this, original design of the hospital was never satisfactory, and we are redesigning that and putting in place things that will be more suitable for the tropical climate. And the money has been put in place. The government has taken steps to ensure the capital is available, and Minister Tufton, aided by the UDC, United Nations, UNOPS, as they say, United Nations organization that assists with the hospital, PAHO, is making sure that the project works efficiently, smoothly, and at the end of the day we'll have a refurbished hospital that will be worthy of the grade A status it has. Doing that work, one expects from this location.
And that's Live Extra, or 30-minute in-depth look at selected top stories of the news week. Remember, we do Live Extra every Saturday, 7:30.